So here we are at the Battle of Raphia. This is going to be the second half of the battle. And only really I'm making this little piece of video because I'm really at the same point I was before, in the middle of the Seleucid move. And I wanted to point out the Ptolemaics had done kind of a push forward. And here's one of the risks. This elephant hitting a heavy phalanx in the flank. The elephant was stacked over here, and as long as it can leave a covering force, it can move away out of a combat situation, and then was able to hit an area, and this is why it's big, is we get a +3 attack on the flank of these big heavy units. That's a huge advantage. Being able to hit a heavy unit with big bonuses, a good chance of elimination, that's what those elephants are really for. So by exposing and trying to break the line more there, Ptolemaics may end up paying a price. On the other hand, this guy is going to be able to shift without making a morale check and start attacking and trying to roll up the flank of the Seleucid side. So, you know, on both sides, we're seeing things happening because of that breakthrough. How they're going to turn out, well, we'll see. Can never tell, because that elephant's going to have to make a morale check to make that attack. It's still below 1-to-1. Well, turns out that attack was none too exciting in either direction. They managed to make the morale check, they managed to make the attack, they caused a morale check, the unit held. No big deal. Interesting action is more happening down here, I guess, but we're not seeing a lot of change after the Seleucid turn. They didn't get many hits, and there weren't any big elephant routes. So Ptolemaic action continues. They're pushing forward deeper into here. On their right flank. So they got this elephant wandering around from the Seleucids. They're having a hard time clearing up the light stuff, but they seem to be rolling back the flank, and they'll be able to turn and advance and start rolling it up, the main phalanx up, actually from both directions at once. It looks like the Seleucids are losing rather massively here. Over on the Ptolemaic left flank, things are so scattered for the Seleucid side, I can't really see them getting together any kind of defense there. Like I said, it looks like the Seleucids are pretty much over here. One of the suggestions in the rules is, if you find that the Ptolemaics win too often, to remove their Greek-style phalanxes from the game, which is, I believe, these guys and these guys. It's a decent number of units. It's like 11 units. I think that would make it almost always going to be a Seleucid victory. Except in conditions where, for example, the Ptolemaic Egyptian infantry gets a morale of 3. Even then it's going to be tough. One of the big advantages for the Ptolemaics is the huge amount of force that they have. Not all of it's very good. Some of it can be very, very bad. I've not played it that way. I preferred to play it this way, but apparently there's historical debate whether or not that the Greek phalanx was even present there, whether Ptolemy even had that kind of force available to him. Anyway, we'll continue on, and that's 5 turns for the Seleucids, and we're seeing them trying to stiffen, basically. They've actually cleared this out. I mean, this is almost a wasteland for everyone at this point. But it's only Seleucid elephants that are there. I thought this was hopeless for them. It looks like Ptolemaics will turn that flank, but that may not be very easy if they don't have... That might not work well if they don't have somebody to defend their own rear as they try to turn it against those light troops that are back there. So they're going to have to try to bring these guys up and defend their own flanks. Going down the line, the Seleucid, both lines are actually pretty solid in the center. Some little holes, but I think the Seleucid's got a couple of good hits in this round. This area is looking much more controlled in terms of the Ptolemaics not being able to turn it as easily. Got a couple of flank attacks that were made, not to great effect against the Ptolemaics. Basically, they weren't able to get better than 1-to-1. They may have moved themselves from 1-to-2 down to up to 1-to-1, but that's not terribly impressive. And at the conclusion of the Ptolemaic fifth turn. Alright, well. Those attempts to roll up the flank don't really look like they're working. I'm seeing some advantage over here, but I'm just not seeing the massive turn that I was hoping. I'm seeing cracks here, but it's becoming kind of a disorganized melee rather than the outflanking, crushing victory that I expected. Elephant's still causing a little bit of trouble down here, but there's really too much garbage in the way for the Seleucid elephants to come in and really ravage the heavy phalanx there. And really the same thing here. I've gotten some lighter units in the way to help protect against the possibility. There's only one left. We had another death. So I don't know. I don't know what the strict numbers are in the game, how to predict it. Ptolemaics start with 122 spears. Seleucids have 92 spears. I think losses in total spears don't really look that different. So my guess is no matter what, the Ptolemaics are going to win this one. But it may not be the crushing victory that I had been thinking it was going to be before. Okay, that's the end of the last Seleucid turn. And, you know, it looks like their line is holding. They gained a little bit of ground, but didn't make any major changes. I believe they're going to lose the game no matter what. Unless, of course, lots and lots of routes happen on the Ptolemaic side. But I think the Ptolemaics are not going to make any risky attacks with any of their spear points. So they should be in the lead at this point still. So after the Seleucid turn, final turn, this is what we got. They kind of tightened up this bulge. If the battle were going to continue, they would certainly be in very good shape at this point. There is a bit of a gap here still, but not a lot of opportunity, I think, for the Seleucids to take advantage of it. The Ptolemaics are able to turn and move against them. So I think we'd see a falling back here. And then over here we've got really the only organized troops in this area are really Ptolemaics. I mean, we only have lights and one elephant facing some heavy forces. So there's no way that the Seleucids could gain any traction there. I would say that they have definitely lost tactically. I'm going to count the spears. I'm pretty sure they lost the game as well, but I'm going to count the spears just to make sure that that's the case, and I'll come back and talk to you. Okay, so I'm going to actually do the wrap as part of this. Counted up the spears, and I got 84 for the Ptolemaics to 42 for the Seleucids. Given that they started at 122 and 92, we're looking at what I'd say is a pretty massive victory for the Ptolemaics. Alright, let's talk about the game. First of all, components. You saw the map. It's plain, but it's sturdy and fairly functional. I have nothing to really complain about it. You know, what do you want on it? It's a plain battlefield. Counters. Double-siding these would have been nice. I don't know if somebody colored these or if they came already kind of with a different background on the different ones. That helps a lot. It would really suck if they were just all white background counters, because when things get routed, they get flipped over. Why would it be nice if they were double-sided? Well, it would be good to know what movement factors, what route number you have to roll for. As it is, you have to pick up each counter and look at it individually when you roll the dice. Speaking of dice, way too many die rolls in this thing. That's really, really painful and usually a huge negative for me. And it is in this for solitaire play. But I remember it working okay in opposed play. Alright, rule book. Not a lot of rules. That's, it's a very simple game, and we got 1, 2, 3, 4 real pages of rules, and a little historical play. Charts and tables on the back have most of what you need. I can't think of much else. I mean, it's okay to look up a chart that you use once in the game, right? And that's the only thing that's different. GDW rules, from my experience, have been very, very functional. They're not terribly pleasing to read for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. I would not, having seen GDW's rules in mainly lighter games, not just this, but some of the Traveler-based stuff, like 5th Frontier War or Imperium, I would be really, really hesitant, and I have been, to buy one of their monster games. I'm either terrified that they're going to be really, really simple rules, which, I'm just not interested in that for a monster. I don't want lots and lots of pieces acting simply. I would rather have a much more complex game that is smaller. And I just don't see the cross-referencing in them, that kind of style. Raphia is obviously way too small for this, but some of the others, I'm just not sure that they make great reference manuals while playing. They get the point across. I understand the game perfectly well. They don't tend to be filled with errors. They tend to be well reviewed, edited for that. But I don't think they would work for anything larger. Now, maybe their larger games have different rules formats. I know SPI went with kind of simpler formats. It's the same basic feel, but they didn't bother with as much effort, and they kind of made bold headers to the statements that they made, so that you could kind of skim the rules and not even read a whole page and remind yourself of most of the game. So I don't know about their monsters. If somebody wants to feed me back some information on them, that would be great. Because I know they invented the monster game basically, but I've always been terrified of it. I had a couple of thoughts on this. I mean, the game is just very, very luck-based and very, very simple. And to me, it is almost a perfect game to play with a new player. Now, it may depend on the type of new player. The new players that I tend to be convincing don't know anything about wargaming and maybe don't know anything about gaming when they first start. And it doesn't bother them that it's an almost all luck-based battle system. It doesn't bother them because they're not trying to move from the Euro games where it's all this, I want this to be, pure and simple and easy. It's not going to be particularly enjoyable, I think, to AT players, except that it's really, really light. So I would think that it might actually be kind of appealing there. But for what I look at, somebody who is kind of into being with me, basically, but, the only way to be with me is to play games. this is actually a good intro level type game. And a good light break or interlude, where you don't have to think real hard. You get to move some pieces around. You get to see some cool stuff happening when the elephants go rambling around, overrunning everyone. But, you know, you just don't have to put that much effort to get a fun effect out of it. I remember the couple times I've played it opposed, I've really, really enjoyed it. And that's been, you know, both with wargamers who are two people. One, my ex, and it was really a lot of fun there. I liked it more than she did, which is kind of odd. But I just liked watching, I liked the effects that you could get off of such a light game. And the second was another wargamer who's very much like me, who also liked watching kind of random things happen on the battlefield. Neither of us are really into competitive play. Neither of us are into, trying to cut the fat from a system and make it as elegant as possible or whatever. And this is a fine game for a light game. I have a hard time telling which light games I'm going to like and which I'm not. So obviously I won't like something like a block game where a lot of strategy is involved. But there's hidden units or whatever. But I remember really enjoying Africa Corps, which has, a sufficient amount of thought and things that you can make mistakes on. But it's a very nice, light way to express that campaign. It may not be terribly historic. This, likewise, I think is a very nice, light way of handling things. But then I look at, like, Napoleon at Waterloo and Napoleon's Art of War, the old SPI, very similar ones. And I'm just not terribly impressed with those. And I don't know what the difference between the two is. I don't know why I like Breitenfeld but not those. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I can't give you the kind of information to tell you whether you'd like this or not, but I can tell you I like it better than others of the same flavor. Other light tactical games. Somebody brought up in I think the first video they had this. They responded on YouTube. They had this and they compared it to Rome Total War battles, and I can definitely see that. You have some idea what the odds are when you're gonna declare an attack, but the outcome, unless you have 1-to-1 odds, the outcome, in that case, the outcome's random, but it can only hurt the opponent. But I mean, it can be totally random. I mean, you can't kill somebody on 1-to-4, but on 1-to-3 you still can. And routing someone may be as good as killing them. Well, if you're attacking things with bad morale, though, it's worth a shot at it. But if you're attacking at less than 1-to-1, your morale comes in, and nobody's got perfect morale, so your unit might rout. Not a big deal there, but yeah, I like the combination. I like the combat chart. I like only the attacker, only the defender gets hurt. I think that works with this in some weird sort of way, even if it is abstracting away the simultaneous nature of combat entirely. And I like the die roll modification chart because it's just cool to see the different unit types having different effects. It's not to the degree of like by weapon type or whatever, but the weapon types were pretty homogeneous at this point. And the armies were remarkably similar. So yeah, overall, I've given this an 8 in my rating system. I don't know how fair that is. I certainly wouldn't give it that off a solo playing, but I've had so much fun in my actual plays that I just don't want to lower the rating at this point. Alright, so next up I guess is going to be Italia by viewer request.